Today's guest is a drum major for STEM equity, and she's going to be telling us all about how she's doing so in the K to 12 space. But first, hey, in case you didn't know, we are under a month from our STEM Success Summit. So I'm going to tell you all about that, and we're going to have our guest right here on STEM Media Live in just a minute. What's going on, fam? It's me. Welcome to STEM Media, where we chat with some of the most inspirational and creative people in the STEM community. I'm your host, Dr. Nehemiah Mabry, and I'm excited, y'all. I'm excited. Why am I excited? You probably asked the question, and I can give you this answer. Well, because tonight is no exception. We have another phenomenal individual who's doing great things in the STEM education space, and I can't wait to bring Chla on in just a little bit. But, ladies and gentlemen, in case you did not know, I have to let you know that we are under 1 month away of this next thing I'm about to tell you about, and that is our segment in Did You Hear That? Did you hear that? The STEM Success Summit is happening. That's right. November 17th to 20th is happening. We are under a month away from that. And what I have on the screen is our platform that we're going to be hosting it on. That's right. We're using Hoover this year. And you can see right here, if you log in, you'll be able to see this behind the scenes registrant attendee only view. You can go to STEMSuccessSummit.com today to get your free ticket. And when you do, you'll have access to just a few things I'm about to show you right now. I'll let you know what you're missing out on. We have our home screen here that we're going to get a lot of just overview on what we're going to be having presentations and workshops on. We're going to be talking about tech and innovation. We have people preparing to teach you about STEM career strategy and certifications. Also, we're going to be talking about funding, how to get the bag, y'all, how to get the money as it relates to things that you're trying to do in your endeavors, grad school, research careers, entrepreneurship. We also have a phenomenal keynote speaker that's coming our way. Ms. Jewel Burks from Google, head of Google Startups, is going to be talking to us. Also, healthcare and medicine, CVS Health, one of our biggest sponsors, is going to be bringing a lot of value, and they're giving away scholarships too. But if you go ahead and register for free 2021.STEMSuccessSummit.com, you can get in and take a look at how these things are showing up on our agenda. That's right. Every day, that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, already in here is the schedule for these presentations and how they're going to be taking place on these days. So I want you all to not miss a single thing, because each day is going to be power-packed with information. We already got a number of attendees in our platform right now. People starting to network. People starting to share where they're from, what they're working on. And I got to tell you, it ain't no fun unless you get in. It ain't no fun unless you get in, because I don't want to come back to you on STEM Media Live telling you about how much fun we have, and you just happen to miss it because you didn't register. Because the biggest thing about this is that, hey, it is absolutely free, free 99, y'all. Here's one of our speakers right here, Dr. Kizzy Corbett. If you didn't know who Dr. Kizzy Corbett, she is a phenomenal scientist who had worked and very instrumental behind the Moderna vaccine, something very relevant as we go through this time of COVID. You can look and see now a number of people who are going to be bringing tons of value that you're going to be able to connect with, get to know in many different ways. So all you have to do is this. I'm going to do it right in front of you. STEMSuccessSummit.com. You go there. You can see our registration page. It says registration is open up here in the top corner, 2021 registration. You click on that, and voila, free, free. One, put your information in here, and you will be good to go. You don't want to miss it. This is our third annual one. The first year, I think we had about 1,000 registered attendees. Year two, we had 2,000 registered attendees. So can you guess how many we're trying to get this year? Our third annual, that's right, 3,000 registered attendees. And guess what? That has to include you. So do not delay. We are just under a month, as I said, probably rounding out 3.5 weeks or so before we kick this thing off. And that, my friends, is all I want to talk about today during our segment of Did you hear that? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get ready to bring our guest on to the screen today. Our guest today is Miss Chéla S. Wallace. She was born and raised in Hampton Roads region of southeastern Virginia. Virginia, stand up, represent. She was a member of the Virginia Peninsula Boys and Girls Club from 8 to 17, and she went through the many programs at the Hampton University between 2000 and 2002. And in April 2007, Chéla accepted her purpose as an educator was not only just to invoke passion and understanding in science, but to use the classroom as a platform to empower future generations to pursue the careers in the STEM fields. She, as I said in my intro, is a drum major for STEM equity, and she believes the greatest gift she will ever receive is to know that her seeds of faith in all of her students that she has taught or mentored will allow her to witness a rise of a new generation that will tackle and conquer the unseen challenges of STEM. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to do me a huge favor right now as I present to some and introduce to others, none other than our guest for this evening, Miss Chéla Wallace. Give it up, give it up, give it up,
Hello,
give it up,
everyone.
give it up, everybody. We got to drop some love. How you doing, Chéla?
Hey, I'm doing well. Talking about STEM tonight, so I'm excited.
Oh, you already know. That's what we do right here on STEM Media
Yes.
Live. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule of empowering and changing the world to come on our platform and to share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, so this is what we're going to do. Y'all, this is Chéla Wallace here, live and direct here on STEM Media Live. And I'm going to ask you what we always ask our guests, and that is you kick us off with telling us a random fun fact about yourself. Of course, you read your bio, we got inspired, but give us a little something we wouldn't expect to hear about you.
A random interesting fact about myself is that my friends call me the music encyclopedia, meaning that you cannot battle me on any music, R&B, rap track. I know it. You will lose. So music is my thing. In a former life, my goal was to be the next Missy Elliott.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Hey, listen, you're from Virginia too. Missy's
I'm
from
from
Virginia.
757 area, so we gotta represent.
Yeah. So I'm sure she was very inspirational and a huge influence through that era of when you were growing up. But tell me about this in terms of music encyclopedia. What era? You gotta be if you could be nine. What era of music would you say is the best era of music?
That's hard because I listen to everything. For me, it depends on the mood. I would have to say late 80s, early 90s rap. So
Really?
my favorite rap group is Tribe Called Quest.
Okay.
So yeah. So I have to say that era of
That
music.
era. So you talking about like Run DMC,
Run DMC,
or more like
Rakim,
LL Cool J.
LL Cool J, but more early 90s, Tribe, leaders of the new
Tribe,
school. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Let me see here. Music encyclopedia. What you know
Oh,
about Little
Lord.
Brother?
I know about Little Brother from North Carolina.
Oh,
and I actually,
okay. All right.
Fonte, yeah. They actually
right.
did a show at the University of Virginia in 2004. They came to our student activities building. Yes, Little Brother Fonte.
No, okay. Because Little Brother is one of those one of those groups you gotta really know your hip hop to know about Little Brother. I always feel, and then Ninth Wonder. I've actually had the opportunity to kind of meet him in person and interact with him because we're living around the same area. He's in Durham. I'm in Raleigh, so he's out and about in the community, and I just feel that's pretty dope that you know about that.
I sure do.
You also wanted to be the next Missy Elliott.
Wanted to be the next Missy Elliott. I mean, I'm still trying to make that happen in my head, but I'm focusing on the STEM space for now.
Yeah. Well, hey, I know that maybe one day there's some content we can make where we pull out a lot of the STEM behind her videos because her music videos epic, right?
Yes. Hype Williams that year, they did a lot with her videos. What's the director? Brett is his first name. Brett did a lot of stuff with her videos. So yeah, I would love to pull out the STEM stuff in her videos. That'd be great.
Yeah, we got to make that happen one day. We gotta talk about that. All right, STEM Media produced, Chéla starring Chéla Wallace. So let me ask you this then, really quick, before we move on. What is your favorite Missy Elliott song?
You can't. That's not fair. That really isn't.
It's not
That
fair.
really isn't. No.
You're right.
Uh-uh.
Just throw one out. Just throw one out that you could vibe with. The moment you hear it, you're like, yo, I'm there.
She's up. I know the entire choreography. I know with the black on, and she's all in the video. Yes, that song gets me in the mood. So that's probably the one that I probably play twice a month when I'm like having a moment. Yeah.
All right, y'all. This is Taylor Wallace coming to us again live and direct. Tell us a little bit about how in the multiverse she would be the next Missy Elliott, but in this one she's advocating STEM, and we're going to try to find a way to intersect those two one day through some content. But Chla, I'm glad you're here. Let's go back though, like to early days again, the southeastern Hampton Roads region of Virginia. You know, I've been there, right? There, you know, you have what is it? The Norfolk, you got the Hampton, and then what's the other one? It's like another. It's like Newport News. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, Newport News.
Bad news, as we call it.
Got you. What were you like in those days growing up? You know, were you very energetic when you were attending these boys and girls clubs as a young child?
My mom would tell you that she never slept, that she had problems with me growing up, that I was an energetic child, but she provided structure. So I thank my parents a lot that they were like, we need to get her into things to kind of get this energy out of her. So that's what led to the Boys and Girls Club. And at the Boys and Girls Club, I was very involved in the arts, dance, music, speaking. And I really thank Steve Cass and Jerry Gammon for really like pouring into me during those years and help build up my confidence. So growing up in Newport News, Virginia, there could be a lot of things that I could have got myself into, but I really had my parents saw my passion at a very young age, and they saw my interest and made sure they invest in that. And then I had always great mentors that poured into those passions and visions, whether it be in school, whether it be out of school, or even in programs like at Hampton University through Upward Bound and PRISM.
Yeah. That's really cool. And was PRISM, right? Was that where you got in? Because I know that's what Pre-Freshmen Interested in Science and Math. Was that where you first took hold of this whole STEM bug, or was it much earlier than that? Go ahead.
Much earlier. I would say, at age 4, or from the time I was about 3 to 4, I watched my grandmother suffer through stage 4 breast cancer. And that was kind of like my entryway into science. At 3, 4, you really don't know your grandmother is sick, but it's like, what is cancer? And so she passed away right in January of 1988. And because of her passing, I didn't really understand what it was. All I knew was cancer. And all I remember growing up is that I will accompany her to her radiation treatments. And I was kind of like her hope. And so I don't remember this, but my mother would say, I would ask doctors 50,000 questions like, what are you putting in Granny? And what is that? And so her death kind of sparked wondering, like a scientific method for me, like, what killed Granny? Can I find the cure to what killed my grandmother? And that has been a trek into how I got into science. It was like, okay, I only knew at 3 the word cancer. Okay, what is that? And so that began my journey of unpacking science. I will be honest with you, my science experience was not the best in elementary school. Science was thought of as a extension activity for kids who were very bright. So it was like a cool class to go to, but so that didn't really, the science piece didn't really take root. I just always knew that cancer had to relate to something in science. And then what really changed my life was my 7th grade science teacher, Mrs. Siders. And that was my first experience with having a science class every single day in my K through 12 career. So from kindergarten to 7th grade, I only maybe had science once a week in some cases, and some cases once a month. But our 7th grade science teacher made everyone do a science fair project. And what I loved about it is she let my creativity go. Whereas all the other kids were picking up science fair products like this easy stuff. I'm going to test to see what type of light can make the plant grow the fastest or the most, right? But at the time, I had really big hair. I had a lot of hair in my head. And my mother was like, look, I'm tired of doing your hair. And so my science fair project, after doing research on hair and I read about keratin bonds and how keratin has nitrogen in it. And I read about hair texture. And my 7th grade science fair project was, does the amount of nitrogen in hair affect the texture in hair? And my goal was, if nitrogen does, my hypothesis was like the most amount of nitrogen you have in your hair, the more kinky your hair is. And then my goal was to develop shampoo from that. When I presented my research, this is what made it impactful. When I presented my topic to my science teacher, she didn't laugh at it. She didn't say this is not something you can do, and she didn't bust my bubble, right? Mm-hmm. But she was like, I want you to continue in your science fair project. And she just let me go with it. I looked like a weird kid around school. I was collecting hair samples from different people in the bathroom.
Consent, right? Like with consent. You weren't like going to
with consent. Like I had my whole form. Like I'm in 7th grade. I'm doing this hair project, and I'm stalking people in the bathroom, collecting hair from their brushes, and then she sat down with me and we designed an experiment. And what I did is I measured out, I'm trying to remember what I did, it's so long ago, but I measured out like 6 centimeters of hair strands from different textures of hair, from different races or different ethnicities. And then I placed it in a test tube. I made this up on my own. Placed it in a test tube. Yeah. I got some baking soda because I read when you burn stuff in baking soda, you emit a gas. And this is stuff that I thought. Now, when no one going through biochemistry, it really was nothing. But this is what I did.
Yeah. But you thought this through. I thought this through
as a 7th grader.
Yeah.
And I put the baking soda in the test tube. My 7th grade science teacher allowed me to use a Bunsen burner, so she showed me how to use a Bunsen burner. And my belief was, if I put the balloon on top of the test tube, why this baking soda is burning the hair, then the gas emitted will inflate the balloon, and then I would measure the circumference of the balloon and use the volume formula to basically predict the amount of gas that was emitted. So that was my 7th grade science fair project. Of course, my results were inconclusive, right? But I ended up winning 2nd place in the biochemistry category.
As you said.
And ended up going to the city science fair.
Right.
And so that experience of my science teacher just let me run, let me dream big, led to, oh, this is science. This can get me closer to figuring out what killed my grandmother. This can get me closer to finding a cure to cancer. And then that is how I continue on that trajectory.
Impressive. Very, very impressive. I think that's an impressive for a high schooler, even, to be honest with you. You know, you were in 7th grade. I think my first science fair project, again, being an engineer, I was like, which paper airplane can fly to this? So I was like making different paper airplanes. But you were really getting samples. You were getting, consent forms. Even you were using gases and nitrogen, all that. Like that's incredible. That's incredible. And so obviously that interest, and like you said, just really the process, the method of solving things, asking questions and finding answers was something that you took hold on, after your grandfather unfortunately passed from cancer. But was high school a little different for you? Like, when did you get into these formal programs like the PRISM and Upward Bound? Like, how did that all come about? Was someone presenting that to you?
So the real dope thing about living in the Hampton Roads area that I could tell my mom is, living in a 757, you see, it wasn't an anomaly for us to see Black doctors or Black engineers. You have the shipyard, you have Hampton University, you have Norfolk State University. You have so many Black professionals in the STEM space. So that was not an anomaly to me growing up. And so after that experience in 7th grade, my mom was shopping around for other things that she can get me involved in. And my mom went to HBCU as well, so she had connects in the Hampton University space. But that also included in at my high school, we used to have. I went to Woodside High School, Newport News, Virginia, and we used to have a career day. And I forgot what it was called, but they would bring in Black professionals to talk to us about STEM. And so that was like my first access point in 9th and 10th grade, like saying, oh, I want to do this, which then led to networking opportunities at Hampton University. So I was able to be involved in Upward Bound my 10th grade year, and then PRISM the summer before my senior year, which I actually stayed on Hampton University's campus for 6 weeks. I got paid every week.
A college experience.
I had the whole college
experience. You got paid.
I got a stipend every week. We took 2 classes, but part of the idea was to basically increase STEM outreach in the Hampton Roads areas.
In the area, yeah. So did you what college did you go to?
So that's interesting. I wanted to go to HBCU, and I applied to all HBCUs, and my mother was like, I think you should apply to University of Virginia. So University of Virginia, and I think UNC Chapel Hill were the only PWIs I applied to, because at the time I was really interested in either pharmacy or if I was going to do chemistry, going eventually into cancer biology research. So UVA, I got into UVA and I'm going to University of Virginia.
Got you. And that's in what? Is that
Charlottesville, Virginia?
Yeah, that's right. Charlottesville. Yeah, but that's how far is that from Hampton Roads area? You were a little away
about 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours.
So not too far. Like if you got home,
not too far. I got home safely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Y'all, this is Chla Wallace here, the drum major for STEM equity, and we're gonna get in a little bit of that in a second of what that means. But I thought it was interesting for you to say that in 2007, you kind of accepted this purpose, this calling, if you will, in the field of education to really, really use it to empower people. Like it's one thing, right, in education to look at it as my goal is just to transfer knowledge. Let me just come in here and profess what I know, and you all take notes and you make sure you can regurgitate it or pass the test. But it's a whole nother thing when you as a person say, I'm going into this classroom to really empower and elevate these individuals. And that obviously was a definitive point for you to embrace that. So can you talk about how you even embrace education as a field of choice? And then B, what really caused that change, that paradigm shift for you as it relates to empowerment?
Yeah. So interesting question. So I went to University of Virginia with the idea that coming out of UVA, I was going to either go obtain a PhD in cancer biology or to go to medical school. That was always the mission and goal. But if I think about it in retrospect now, I've always had a mentoring type of gifting. And so I think that is something that I nurtured in a way at UVA, where I started organizations and led organizations to bring in people to do, I co-founded the Organization of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers. So that whole organization was to like recruit Black people into chemistry. So I've always had that mentoring, empowerment role, but I was just leadership, but I was just so focused on, I want to really study what happened to my grandmother, right? And I never thought about that avenue. And so when I left University of Virginia, I ended up moving to Texas, and immediately after graduation, it was supposed to be a 2-week visit, ended up being a 9-year stay in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas. And I really felt that was a place for me to grow and to kind of like become the woman that I desired to become. And so that first year in Texas was supposed to be like a gap year. I took a job at an insurance company, basically like it was called claims operations specialist, but essentially I was filing papers for the claims people. So it was like a secretarial role, but I did well. And but in that year, my cousin was not doing well in chemistry. She was in high school. So I started tutoring her in chemistry, and she ended up like getting, raising her grade from like a low C to a high B. And so, my uncle was like, I think you have a gifting in education. I'm like, no, I don't want to teach. I want to go to medical school. That is not what I want to do. That's not me. I'm trying to be up in the white. I'm trying to be in the lab, cutting up rats and stuff like that. And
right. Not getting after people's kids, not trying to keep people's kids in line.
And so I started to tutor more kids and still kept my job. And one of the board of directors at the San Antonio Boys and Girls Club found out that I went to the Virginia Peninsula Boys and Girls Club and asked me to come speak at a literacy graduation that they had. They had a program called Time to Read, and Time to Read is pretty much they bring in kids once a month and they read. People from different businesses come in to read to these kids at the Boys and Girls Club once a month. So they asked me to come speak at the graduation. And this was April 2007. So she was like, I want you to come speak at the graduation and talk about how the Boys and Girls Club changed your life. And 30 minutes before the graduation, I ripped my speech up and was like, no, I want to talk about the kids and their future.
Wow.
And I changed the whole format of the speech. I went out to go purchase All the Places You Go by Dr. Seuss. And in the speech, I had kids like chanting stuff and wrote down their dreams. And they were just, so excited. And the president of the board of directors of the Boys and Girls Club came up to me and said, the way you engage those kids, have you thought about teaching? And that was like the 10,000 person that told me that. And I was like, okay, my faith is very important to me. So I was like, okay, God, what are you saying? Yeah. What are you saying? So that happened. And I took like a week off to like really think about, okay, I might need to change my trajectory. And so I enrolled into a alternative certification program in Texas the next week. My original goal was to teach middle school science because that is where I got interested in science. So I went in to go get certified for science 4 through 8. I ended up getting hired on at a charter school of excellence in education in August of 2007. And a couple of days before school started, the person they had hired on to be the chemistry teacher quit. So then they moved me up to be the high school chemistry teacher. And so that's how I got into education. That's how you got it. Into high school as a high school chemistry teacher in 2007.
Oh, man. Y'all, listen, that's a phenomenal story because I tell you, it's so often that, we could go into college, and this happens all the time. You go into college, you're going to pursue a certain career. You picture these things, even your major, right? You're like, oh, I'm getting this major for this purpose. But the truth of the matter is there's still so much more we learn about ourselves, even after you go off to college. And in your case, you went off and you were working somewhere else in a different state, but yet and still that purpose, that calling of really empowering young people it followed you to the point that you're tearing up your speech last minute and just freestyling and killed it.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about it, I think what made the calling in that 2-week reflection period or that week reflection period where I took off, I had to think about my experience at University of Virginia. I struggled as a chemistry major at the University of Virginia. It wasn't a experience where I can say it was like happy, right? I can talk about I was on academic probation. And the feeling that I maybe did not belong in this space. I made it out, but it was a struggle. And so part of the reason why I decided to really accept this calling as an educator is because I said I never want any student to feel like how I felt at University of Virginia. If I can use the classroom, use my position to empower and to really give kids the mindset and the belief and the skills and tools to be successful in this space, so they do want to go off and major in science, or do want to go off to get their doctorate, that I have done all I can to get them there, because I never want anyone to feel like how I felt.
Yeah. You say in your bio, it says your experience in the form of failures and challenges as a woman of color pursuing a STEM degree became your testimony, right? To mold youth with aspirations of becoming a scientist, physician, or an engineer. Yeah, it's something special when you have that. Hey, I've been through it. I've been where you are. I've seen the score that looks like this before. I've seen the score that looks worse than this before, right? And let me tell you how I bounced back. And that, in a lot of ways, is what kind of brought me to a lot of things that I put out, even with STEM media. Getting those scores and like asking them, hey, are you missing a number here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? Is that supposed to be a 9 or is that a 4?
Hold
like,
on. Is it, what is this? The average was this, and I got, wait, what? What's the standard
Exactly.
deviation?
Like, are we doing this? Is this out of 100 or is it like
Two
out
standard
of
deviations away? What are we doing?
exactly? That's real though. That's real. Well, awesome. Just to fast forward a little bit, because I definitely want to get into some of your philosophy and your mindset towards STEM equity. But like, okay, you started teaching down there in Texas. How did you get to New York, which is where you are now? Like, give me the timeline.
So, like I said, I lived in San Antonio for 9 years. I thought that was going to be the place that I was going to be forever and ever. Amen. But I was in high school land for 8-9 years, had various roles, teaching, robotics coach, leadership, coaching teachers. And in 2012, I wrote up a dream position. And my dream position in 2012 that I wrote up was to be a director of STEM. So the organization that I worked for at the time, the CEO had asked all the leaders, if we could create any position for you, what would it be? And I wrote director of STEM. So I always knew, like, I wanted to be in that type of capacity, leadership capacity, because I saw how some of the seeds that I planted in the classroom with kids that did not have hope. And by the time I got the kids in 11th grade in chemistry, they hated science. They did. And so I saw how I was allowed to shift their mindsets to even believe that they could do science. And so I said, eventually, if I'm able to get any position where I can just influence the impact even more, it'll be director of science. So that was in 2012. Ended up going to graduate school at AVID University in San Antonio, Texas. That was a grant that paid for my master's degree in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis on integrated science. I graduated in 2014, and then I got an opportunity to Philadelphia to work for an organization as an assistant director of science. So I got recruited by this organization in 2015. So I was in Philly for 2 years. As director of science for grade 6 to 12.
Right. He's at the Philly John. That was at the Philly John.
Philly John, that John, yes. And then KIPP, where I work for now, I worked for KIPP previously in San Antonio. There was an opportunity for me to work there, and I moved to KIPP NYC in 2017.
KIPP NYC. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Because KIPP is one of those things I'm putting on the screen. I've always heard about it, right? Like the logo, like the branding is strong, right? KIPP branding is strong.
Branding is real strong.
And I've never really knew what it was until like I looked into it, and I know KIPP stands for what? Knowledge is Power Programs. Correct?
Yes.
All right, tell us a little bit about it, and then the fact that it's NYC. Are there other KIPPs? Like, talk a little bit just about just the overall network.
So KIPP, Knowledge is Power program, was started in around 1995. The first school was in Houston, Texas. Was founded by Dave Levin and a guy named Mike Feinberg, who really wanted to change the trajectory of education. The original mission was, what they were noticing is that kids that went from fifth to sixth grade, there was like a gap, an achievement gap from ELA and math. And so what they decided to do is to avoid that gap is to start their program or whatever they wanted to do in fifth grade, with focusing heavy on reading and math. So that started a whole movement. They started a school in Houston. because it was so successful, the year after they started a campus in the Bronx, South Bronx, KIPP Academy Middle School. And today there's over 200 schools in many different regions all across the United States. And so KIPP is a charter school network. Mm-hmm. We say we are public schools. The way that we do things is a little different. The day is extended for kids. So kids go from 8 to 4 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. And typically on Wednesdays, they go for a half day. But essentially that longer day is to provide, well, I would say this, KIPP is going through a rebranding of what the school day looks like. So that longer school day is not longer classes, is an opportunity for kids to take part in extracurricular activities such as robotics, which I manage, or dance and, sports. So
I'm going to ask you about that program in just a little bit, but I think it's really interesting. Programs like this and schools like this, even got some of the comments saying KIPP is dope. This is very interesting. Shout out to Princess. It seems to be more flexibility sometimes in programs like this because, you're a public charter school, but you can also sort of like flex the way that you educate, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about changing the school day and things like that. How is that for you as a teacher, as a director?
Yeah. So like I said, 2017, I came back to KIPP, and then in 2018, I was promoted to the director of science for the entire network here in New York City. So KIPP NYC we just opened up 3 schools this year, but we have 19 schools across New York City, which includes Manhattan, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. So I manage and execute the science vision all over those schools. And so I've been in that role since 2018. And because KIPP has that flexibility, and also because KIPP in 2016, 2017 decided as an entire network that they wanted to focus on STEM, I'm able to run with that vision. So any funding, anything that will allow kids to have the full STEM experience, I'm able to provide that to kids. And that's what the flexibility that KIPP provides.
Yes. I love it. People, we getting some comments. 19 schools. Wow. Thank you all so much for your engagement. So glad you all are a part of this. Shout out to my man, Tamuka. He's talking about your early journey, just kind of hearing how you kind of went so many different places, right? STEM journeys are as meandering as the rivers of the world. Sounds like an awesome journey. Shout out to you. Fantastic. Here, another comment really quick. Jocelyn says, let's go. That's my cousin. Go Bulldogs. KIPP NYC College Prep High School. Yes, good to have you.
I would like to tell people that just be open. I never thought I'd be in New York City. And here I'm shifting trajectories of kids, of almost 9,000 kids. And I never thought that I'd be in this position. But think about it. I wrote up this job description in 2012. So just be open to opportunities.
Be open.
Where your heart is leading.
Man, that's really good. I love it. And you wrote up the job. There's so much to say. And I won't get carried away, right? But there's so much to say about knowing what you want, right? And going after what you want. Because sometimes we rule things out for ourselves before we even go after it, before we even shoot. We just assume, oh no, that doesn't exist anywhere. I won't be able to do this, or I'm not qualified. And that we pretty much tell ourselves no before we even try. And the fact that you wrote it down and you said, hey, even though you may have, at the time thought it was just kind of like a frivolous exercise, you did it, right? You did it, and it brought about this reality that you have. So I think that's what you just said was really, really impactful to me. So I'm glad you shared that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So here's the thing: making a difference. Indeed, you are right there in New York City. What borough you're in?
Well, schools. We have schools in 3 different boroughs, but I live in Harlem.
So you live in Harlem, but you service the 3 different schools.
Manhattan, Bronx, and Brooklyn. Yep.
Manhattan, Bronx, and Brooklyn. All right, cool. Well, making the impact is definitely what you're doing, and one of the ways is through your robotics program, which we're going to just talk about really quick for our segment. School me. You had a little bit of press. I'm gonna let the people see this really quick.
From robots built with Legos to inventions that could help save our planet, Dozens of KIPP middle school students showed off the talent from their masterful minds Saturday at a STEM expo in the Bronx. KIPP NYC was awarded a $50,000 grant 2 years ago to launch 18 robotics teams across KIPP's K-8 program.
It's really fun because I get to learn about new things that I've never learned about.
The goal to have judges look at their machines and robots built and programmed by these 5th through 8th graders. And one of the top inventions of today was this robotic car. And 10-year-old Jaden Zayas was the brains behind this operation.
The purpose of it is for it to be able to move around our project mat and for it to be able to help people with disabilities.
Yes, a robot that assists Lego figurines with disabilities, an invention that Jaden hopes he can one day use in real life.
We have a disabled person on the swing, and this attachment is supposed to help the person get down from the swing.
These coveted trophies will be given out to 3 teams here at this expo, but some of these students are already moving on to the city semifinals in 3 weeks. And getting first place in this competition.
We have middle school students now talking about that they want to go into science, technology, engineering, and math. I have some students that are now saying they want to be engineers, they want to be doctors.
A group of kids using their minds and their skill set to already start making a difference. In the Grand Concourse section of the Bronx, Richard Giacobas, Fox 5 News.
This is phenomenal, Chla. This is phenomenal. This was obviously something that you all did that garnered a lot of attention. And go ahead and talk to us a little bit about this. Go, let us know what this was all about.
Yeah, so I'm getting teary-eyed looking at that again. This was February 2020, and we shut down in March 2020 from the pandemic. So this was our last in-person event. So, but basically, what you're seeing is that innovation piece, the piece that I'm able to just provide an innovative program to kids that typically wouldn't be involved. First Robotics, it was started by Dean Kamen, who is known for inventing the Segway. And, you know, he started the organization with the idea to get kids into STEM, but also he would poll kids, and kids would say that they want to be a basketball player or a baseball player. And so he decided to combine sports and science and technology, engineering, math in this fun way, which you saw with these kids in the first robotics program. The problem with the first robotics program is that it was originally a certain audience of kids that were able to participate in these programs, white people from affluent, privileged backgrounds. And so in 2018, when I assumed the role, we got a $50,000 grant from First Robotics to start 18 robotics teams across our K-8 schools. And as a result of that program, it is our most popular program within KIPP NYC. As of today, we have 31 total teams. We have parents who, if you see here in our culminating activity is the K-8 STEM Expo, where we have all of the robotics teams from all over the schools come together in our high school gym to compete against each other. And so that's what you saw on that video. We have our elementary component, which you see right here, and we have our middle school component. And what I really love about this opportunity is that kids see themselves in STEM through this program. And I have now elementary kids, which we know that elementary is a space that needs to grow in STEM. I now have elementary kids saying they want to become computer engineers and computer scientists and get their PhD in computer engineering because of this. So that is what you're seeing here. And I just hope that we can get more people, particularly Black and brown kids, involved in this program because it is life-changing.
Yeah, definitely. And I see you here with the mic in your hand doing what you do. You know what I mean? Garnering up enthusiasm, excitement, all about STEM. What have you found to be some of the keys of success for implementing programs like this in, traditionally underrepresented, marginalized, low income, even, different social and economic communities? Because some people will dare to suggest, it's just not embrace as much. They're interested in other things and that type of
Right.
thing. So can you speak a little bit about what you found to be effective in bringing out what we already know is there, right? Tremendous potential and tremendous engagement possibilities.
I think about one of my students. He's now in his 6th grade, but Devin, and we just got parent support. So getting parents into the spaces. So I typically tell my coaches, when you're starting the robotics team, contact parents, have parents come in to observe this program in action, have them volunteer. Because part of the first robotics commitment is that parents should be volunteering in some capacity. So if that's bringing in snacks, if that is providing transportation, or you're going to make sure that the kids get the materials to and from the place that they're practicing, like, be intentional about that. And so we started doing that with parents. And now parents, they email me during the pandemic, like, when is robotics getting started? So I would say, start with the parents, introduce them. I've even suggested some coaches, like, have some build days with parents. Some of our parents are 1 to 2 generations out from never having a great science experience. And so I think that the more you get parent input, money is always a great way to start these programs. There are a lot of grants out there. There are a lot of companies and organizations that are willing to donate money to get this stuff started. Just put it out there. And then kids will flock when they see other kids that are happy about it, and that they're getting rewarded and they're staying up late. Kids are going to bring other kids, but it really starts with the adults and the mindset around it.
I love it. I love it. I see you giving them medals and stuff. They're getting their awards. They love that. They're geeked about that, right?
Oh my gosh, that is, one of the things I said, if we're going to do this K8 Expo, every kid is going to get a medal. They're going to get a high five. And certificates. And so these kids, they have these, 2 years later, they have these medals up in their houses. And so that's what matters to me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, let me ask you this really quick too, though. Like, you're competing, you have I know FIRST is like a big league almost now, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to sort of like the technical excellence, do you bring in professionals, or like do you make sure your leaders and your coaches are like thoroughly trained? Like, what are some of the things you do to make sure the technical integrity is as high as it can be with the leader?
So with the program, there is a training that FIRST provides. So typically all of our coaches go to that training. And then what I do, because, side note, the way that I got into robotics was in 2007 as a first-year teacher. The school got this $50,000 grant and was like, "You're young, we're going to give it to you." And so I was thrown in robotics, and that I was like, I'm a chemist. I don't know anything about robotics. And so that's how I got into FIRST Robotics, was in 2007. And I saw life-changing things happen with some of my students who are now in their early 30s, right? They're in the STEM space. And so because of my experience, because I was not as prepared as a director, I make sure the teachers go through that training. I make sure that I also do monthly trainings with teachers to keep them aware of how they should be managing the team. And then we do solicit help from area companies. They want to come in and mentor. I had a student who was a former FIRST Robotics student in Houston, Texas. She somehow found my information online as an NYU student. And so last 2 years, she's been my FIRST Robotics volunteer and mentor. So they're out there. There are people out there that are willing to volunteer for this program, that know about the program.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is obviously inspirational showing of just one of the ways Chla is impacting and really building STEM equity for those students that she serves there in NYC through KIPP. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep it moving, but that's gonna conclude our segment that we do known as a school meeting. School meeting. School meeting. All right. Thank you for sharing that little bit about the robotics program. And as we kind of start coming to the end, I want to ask you what may be a loaded question. It may not be. Maybe you have a nice, concise answer, but what does STEM equity mean to you? Like, that is a term that that I get, right? But at the same time, it's probably not always right to assume that everybody automatically knows what you mean when you say that. So go ahead and explain, maybe for me and even those who are listening, how you view just the term STEM equity and what that really means.
Well, we know equity and equality are two terms that are used interchangeably, and they're not the same. So equality assumes that everyone is on the same playing field and they're equal. Equity just means that I'm going to provide more supports to a certain set of people or a certain group of people to make sure they also have that same equal playing field, right? Mm-hmm. So I hope that makes sense. So they're all there's a picture. I wish I had that picture, the equity picture, but it was like a picture of a short person, a medium-sized person, and a tall person all trying to view a baseball game over a tall fence. Well, the short person, you have to provide crates to get them to be able to see the game, right? So then you might give them 3 crates to be able to see the game. The medium-sized person, there you go. You will provide 1 crate, and the tall person is already at the level they be able to see. So when I think about STEM equity, it's just providing resources, opportunities for kids and adults to get that same playing field to be competent and confident in the STEM space. So that's providing money where I have the opportunity in my position where I can write grants to do programs like First Robotics. I have a grant through the Robin Hood Foundation where we are starting computational thinking and data science in grades K through 5, and that's innovative, right? That's typically not happening until middle school. So I can provide money, resources, and time so that kids can get that same playing field in the STEM space. That's STEM equity to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Equality is a value, but it's not always equitable. And knowing that sometimes just access, right, resources, things like that have already for years been shifted in one direction. That means it takes an intentionality to pour into and to direct resources and opportunities in certain areas, just so people can have, again, that level playing field, that opportunity to see and to go very, very far. Even in the title of our chat today, about you being of someone who is building STEM equity as it relates to not just this current generation, right, but the future generation of thinkers, of creators, of innovators. And man, I tell you, one of the things, as you mentioned, even in your bio, as I mentioned when I read it, was just be able to one day see how people have been able to achieve higher than they ever thought was possible because of what you were able to expose them to, what you were able to do for them. For a person to perhaps cure cancer, right? Because of you being able to expose them to this STEM world. And that just really brings it back full circle for your whole story when I think about all that you're doing. And so kudos to you. Much respect.
Thank you.
Much respect to your work. But how can people stay in touch with you? Of course, we've connected on the interwebs, social media. Right. I've had an opportunity to even speak at one of your programs, but talk a little bit about what the people can learn about and look out for as it relates to Chéla Wallace and KIPP NYC.
Yeah, you can get in contact with me. My handle is Cwalla, CWALLA, STEM, STEM, EDU. That's my Instagram account. You can find me on LinkedIn at Chéla Wallace. Put the accent over the E. My mother named me that, so very unique. And you could definitely, email me through my work email address, which is cwallace@kippnyc.org. We are in the midst of pandemic life at KIPP NYC. So really, making sure that the teachers feel supported in the classroom teaching science. This is the first time teaching science in over 18 months. So how do you navigate that space? With labs, we just started back up our robotics program. It actually starts tomorrow. So if you want to get involved in helping out with volunteering, if you're in an NYC area, or even donating, or even just coming up to see what we do, we would love to have you. And then we are outside of KIPP. I'm advocating for STEM in various ways, whether that be guest speaking or programming for organizations.
Yes, indeed. Yes, she will have you over. And like I said, I had the opportunity to do so. And thank you so much for that opportunity in the past. And thank you for coming on this show, because
Thank
I think
you.
there's just so much more to be done. And there's something inspiring about inspiring. That's what I like to say. And hearing about what you're doing, you know, as I continue to do what I'm doing, it's sort of a symbiotic process. So we can get offline and we can go and pour into these students, or even do it online, right? In this day and age, still doing it online in many ways, particularly given COVID and all that. But we just want to empower you and affirm you in everything that you're doing, because we know it's not always easy, right?
No.
And I know that you don't always get a thank you, an actual thank you from the students that you're really trying to help. And so allow my thank you to be the ones that have yet to come, right? The
Thank
ones that
you.
won't come for another few years, right? So thank you for
Yeah.
all you're doing, Chla. Yeah.
Thank you. Last year, one of my first students just earned her PhD in chemistry last year, Dr. Janice Jackson. I had her as a 16-year-old, and I actually remember that conversation. She found out I got my degree in chemistry, and she was like, well, I think I want to get my PhD as a 16-year-old. I said, you will. And I've kept in contact with her throughout the years, and so now she's Dr. Janice Jackson. So those are my thank yous that I get when I see my kids succeed, my former
Phenomenal.
students.
Phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you aren't inspired, something must be wrong, right? Because I've been inspired by this conversation with Chla. And Chla, before we get out of here, we just have to ask you one more final question, and that is, you know, give us some parting words of wisdom. This can be something that, you know, you hear a lot, that you've held on to, that you share. It could be a quote, whatever it may be. Just give us something to hang on to before we say goodbye.
Well, I'm going to highlight. I have two women that I love dearly, is Shirley Chisholm and Mary McLeod Bethune. And I highlight Mary McLeod Bethune because I don't think we give her enough credit. If you don't know about her, she a trailblazer in education and civil rights. She opened up an all-girls boarding school in Florida, which is now Bethune-Cookman. She was on Franklin D. Roosevelt's cabinet as far as education. But I wanted to read a quote from her last will and testament. She basically wrote the last will and testament a year before she died in 1954, and she died in 1955 at 79. And her last will and testament, if you haven't read it, basically leaves us challenges that we need to think about as we move forward in life. And I want to read one of her challenges for us. And it's called, and I'm going to read the quote. This is what she says. I leave you finally a responsibility to our young people. The world around us really belongs to the youth, for the youth will take over its future management. Our children must never lose their zeal for building a better world. They must not be discouraged from aspiring towards greatness, for they are to be the leaders of tomorrow. Nor must they forget that the masses of our people are still underprivileged, ill-housed, impoverished, and victimized by discrimination. We have a powerful potential in our youth, and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that they may direct their power toward good end. That was her encouragement to us in 1955, and those words still 1954, and those words still reign true today, that we have powerful potential in our youth. So use what you have so they can shift the world.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And you're doing that. You're practicing what you preach, what she preached. And thank you for your courage, Chla. Thank you for your courage.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a great, fantastic week.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mabry.
All right. Fam, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. And again, thank you to my guest, Chla Wallace, for all the great work she's doing. I hope that you all, in whatever sphere, whether you're pursuing a STEM career or you're continuing to expose other people to it, that you really take those words of wisdom to heart, and that you continue to do the best you can to elevate, empower, because ultimately, I just look forward to seeing you in the winner circle. So thank you all so much. Make sure you register for the STEM Success Summit, and I will catch you all next time right here on STEM Media Live.